Rome wasn't built in a day, but Julius Caesar helped to build Rome into what it became. He did many great things, including defeating Gaul, starting the Julian calendar, and crossing the Rubicon River into Italy with his army. But these weren't the first things he did. Here are 10 of his craziest things before he became famous for those events. Number 10, the Lupercal Cave. Before Julius Caesar was conquering Gaul or reforming the Roman calendar, he was a young politician looking to make a name for himself in Rome. And what better way to do so than to get the favor of the gods? The Lupercal Cave was an ancient sacred site where legend said Romulus had nursed 2 she-wolves after being abandoned as a baby. It was also believed that the fertility god Faunus, protector of shepherds, had a sanctuary in the cave. The cave was located near the base of the Palatine Hill in an area known as the Lupercal. In 509 BCE, a Roman festival dedicated to Faunus was held here. But it quickly grew into one of Rome's most important festivals, attracting visitors from all over Italy. Every February, young men would take part in the Lupercal rites, purification ritual that involved sacrificing goats and dogs and dipping their hands into the blood of the sacrificed animals. They would then touch various parts of the city, transferring the sacrificial blood and purifying the city. The most famous part of the festival was when the participants raced around the Palatine Hill, striking women with a leather strap called a febro. The women would try to avoid getting hit, but if they were struck by the febro, they were considered more fertile for the coming year. But this festival took a dark turn when Caesar decided to hold a feast in the cave, which was filled with prostitutes for the guests to enjoy. This was considered taboo, since no human was allowed inside the sanctuary. The Senate demanded that Caesar apologize, but he refused, and instead built a temple to the Lupercal under the Palatine Hill, which appeased the Senate enough for them to allow him to keep the prostitutes. Some historians say this was the beginning of Rome's moral decline, but we can't know that for sure. 9. The First Triumvirate. Caesar had made a name for himself and was gaining influence in Rome, but he wasn't powerful enough to do much by himself. So in 60 BCE, he formed an alliance with 2 other influential men, Pompey and Crassus, to form the First Triumvirate. This alliance gave them immense political power, allowing them to control elections and pass laws that favored them. They used this power to gain provinces and armies, preparing them for future conflicts. While the triumvirate lasted for only a few years, it set the stage for the rise of Caesar. After Crassus's death, Caesar allied himself with Pompey, making him popular with the common folk. However, after Crassus's brother, Brutus, accused Caesar of having an affair with Pompey's wife, Pompey broke off the alliance, leaving Caesar vulnerable. To protect himself, Caesar sought refuge in Gaul, beginning his conquest there and eventually taking the title Dictator. Number 8. Marius and Sulla. When Caesar joined the Roman army, he hoped to gain glory and experience. Unfortunately, he ended up caught between 2 rival Roman generals, Gaius Marius and Lucius Cornelius Sulla. They fought each other for control of Rome, and Marius disliked Caesar because he was related to Sulla. He even tried to have Caesar executed, forcing him to flee Rome. Eventually, Sulla came to power, ending the social war and conquering the region of Pontus. Sulla then returned to Rome and punished his enemies, including the Marians. Although he was initially exiled, Caesar switched sides and supported Sulla, helping him defeat the remaining Marians once and for all. Caesar was then appointed governor of further Spain, where he remained until Sulla died. With Sulla out of the picture, the Senate didn't want Caesar returning to Rome, so they kept him busy conquering new territories while they struggled to maintain control. This rivalry was a pivotal moment in Caesar's life, shaping his view of Rome and its elite class and setting the stage for his later actions. 7. The Gallic Wars. After being appointed governor of the northern province of Gaul, Caesar found himself at war with the Helvetians. They wanted to move south into central Gaul, but Caesar stopped them at the Battle of the River, securing his reputation as a military leader. He then went on to conquer the rest of Gaul, defeating Vercingetorix, king of the Arverni tribe, and taking him to Rome as a prisoner. During his campaign, he wrote about his military victories in a book called Commentaries on the Gallic War, cementing his image as a great general. He had expanded Rome's territory by conquering new lands, clashing with other European tribes, and discovering new places like Britain. His victories made him extremely popular, giving him the support he needed to launch a civil war against the Senate and ultimately become dictator of Rome. Number 6. The Egyptian delegation. After Caesar's assassination, his adopted son Octavian inherited his title of dictator and his vast empire. However, there was a problem. Cleopatra, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt, had come to Rome to plead her case before Caesar. She argued that she and her late husband, Ptolemy XIII, had been co-rulers of Egypt and that Octavian had no right to claim her throne. The issue was complicated by the fact that Cleopatra and Caesar had a son together named Caesarion. This caused a power struggle between Cleopatra and Octavian, who eventually defeated her and took control of Egypt. Octavian also declared Caesarion illegitimate, solidifying his claim to the throne. This marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the beginning of Roman rule in Egypt. No. 5. Crossing the Rubicon. Tensions were rising between Caesar and the Roman Senate, who wanted him to return to Rome and give up his military command. Instead, Caesar chose to defy them and march his army across the Rubicon River into Italy, marking the beginning of the Roman Civil War. This bold move showed the world that Caesar was serious about challenging the authority of the Senate and was willing to go to any length to protect his power. Crossing the Rubicon solidified Caesar's status as a rebel leader and set in motion the events that would lead to the fall of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. As Caesar's army advanced through Italy, they faced little resistance. By the time they reached Rome, the city had fallen into chaos and the Senate had fled. Caesar's triumphal entry into Rome marked a turning point in Roman history. The Republic was effectively over, and Rome was on the verge of becoming an empire. Number 4. Forming the Second Triumvirate. After defeating Pompey in the Civil War, Caesar was eager to secure his position as the most powerful man in Rome. He began by forming the Second Triumvirate with Marcus Agrippa and Octavian, his grandnephew and adopted son, who was later known as Augustus. This alliance gave Caesar the support he needed to carry out his ambitious plans for Rome, including reforming the government and the calendar. However, Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE threw the entire system into chaos. Octavian, Agrippa, and Mark Antony formed the Second Triumvirate to restore order to Rome. They divided the empire among themselves and pursued policies that favored their respective areas. This triumvirate lasted for several years, during which they defeated Caesar's assassins and established control over the entire empire. However, tensions eventually rose, and Octavian defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium, giving him sole control of the Roman Empire. No. 3. The Last Olympian. The Olympians were a group of 8 prominent Roman aristocrats who were known for their great wealth and influence. They played a significant role in Roman politics and society, often acting as advisors to the emperor and holding important positions in the government. However, their power and privilege came under threat when Caligula took the throne. He viewed the Olympians as a potential threat to his authority and began to take measures to reduce their influence. He stripped them of their power and wealth, causing them to lose their privileged status. The crackdown on the Olympians marked a turning point in Roman history, signaling the decline of the traditional Roman aristocracy and the rise of a new elite class that was more closely tied to the emperor. This event also highlighted the volatile nature of power and the constant struggle between the ruler and the ruled. No. 2. The Egyptian campaign. After the death of Julius Caesar, Rome was in turmoil and Egypt was in a state of flux. Cleopatra, the last active ruler of Egypt, had a child with Caesar, but her hold on power was tenuous. Fearing for her son's safety, she sent him to Rome with a trusted advisor. Meanwhile, Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and heir, was eager to expand his power and influence. He saw Cleopatra and her son as a threat to his ambitions and began to plot against them. Octavian enlisted the help of Mark Antony, a powerful Roman general, and together they launched an attack on Egypt. The campaign was long and bloody, but in the end, Octavian and Antony emerged victorious. Cleopatra and her forces were defeated, and Egypt became a province of Rome, known, the Great Fire. Rome was a bustling city with a population of over 1 million people. It was densely populated, and the buildings were mostly made of wood. This made it susceptible to fires. But nothing could have prepared the Romans for the Great Fire of Rome. The fire started in the summer of 64 CE and burned for 6 days and 7 nights. It destroyed a large portion of the city, leaving thousands of people homeless and the economy in ruins. Nero, the Roman emperor at the time, blamed the fire on Christians and used it as an opportunity to persecute them. He also took advantage of the disaster to expand his own power and wealth. However, his actions were unpopular, and he was eventually forced to commit suicide. The Great Fire of Rome had a profound impact on the city and the course of Roman history. It led to the creation of new building codes and the reconstruction of Rome with more durable materials. It also contributed to the decline of the Julio-Claudian dynasty and the rise of the Flavian dynasty. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.